Hello, Aimsy here of Aimsy's Antics. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're well today because I have another crafty project for you to have a go at. And in this week's video, I'm going to show you how to make an elephant plushie that is super cute with some sensory aspects as well. We've got nice textured silky ribbon as well as some crinkly ears, if you can hear that. Perfect for giving the little one a bit of sensory exploration with a cute little plushie. Now my friend has either had her baby or she is about to have a baby, and this is my little baby gift for the little one. So if you would like to see how to make an elephant plushie, making their own pattern yourself and sewing it all together, then let's get crafting. To make the elephant plushie, you are going to need two different types of material of your choice. I'm using two different fat quarters here, some toy stuffing, a elephant picture from the internet that you are going to make into a pattern, and I will show you that in a second, as well as your regular sewing supplies including matching cotton thread to your material, a sewing machine, pins, scissors, and not forgetting some nice silk ribbon in different shades of colour matching your fabric. So here is my elephant picture that I just took from the internet and blew it up so that it would print out the largest on an A4 sheet of paper, and then placing over some sewing tracing paper so that I can still see the design but also have a nice thin paper for it. And yes, I'm securing it in place with a shot glass, and the shot glass of choice is a Kardashian Chaos one that my friends bought me back from Vegas years ago. Don't even know if that is still there. And then I'm using a trick that I have picked up from Pinterest by securing two pencils together, and why we're doing this is because it creates a nice equal distance between them both, and I'm going around the outline of the elephant, tracing around this, and with having the two pencils, the outside pencil is actually marking on the seam allowance, so this is about 1 centimetre. And it's a really great trick because it does work. It's a little bit fiddly in some places, but what we will do is sew on where the darker pencil mark is, and that'll be the seam allowance, if that makes sense. Then I'm just drawing a line down from where the body and head meets because these will be two separate pattern pieces, and finally tracing around with that double pencil again round the ears because this will make the third and final piece to the pattern. And here is a pattern all cut out, and as you can see I have marked on where the grain line is going to be, where the notches are to meet up each piece, as well as the notches that are going to need it to be cut into the curved parts of the pattern once it is sewn together. And I'm just demonstrating here how all the pattern pieces will fit together, and then we're ready to get sewing. So for the body and head of the elephant, I'm using a pinky grey type material here, and it is cotton fat quarter that I think I picked up in Aldi. So I'm just pinning it in place, folding over the material as much as I need, and we're going to cut out 2 of the body and 2 of the head, and I like to fold it over just amount that I need and then cut down the fold because it does save on material, and I still have quite a bit of the fat quarter left for other little projects. And then I am going to do some contrasting ears for the elephant, so I am using another fat quarter cotton piece of material from Aldi, and this is one of the Disney ranges, and I think it's like Sleeping Beauty or Snow White maybe. And for the elephant ears we're going to need 4 of these. So what I have done is folded it over once and then folded this again and then folded again, so it's like a bit of a concertina, is that how you say it? So there's 4 layers to the fabric, and then pinning on the pattern piece and cutting this out as well. And here is all of the pattern pieces cut out in the chosen materials. Now this part is optional, but if you do want to make the crinkly ears, you're going to need some form of plastic. Now I recommend a softer plastic for this, and one that is food safe. So the packet of plastic that your cereal come in is really good for this, but I am actually using a plastic piping bag for this as well. But I would recommend the cereal packet as a better alternative. So what you want to do is trace around that earpiece and cut it out. You want 2 per ear, and make sure that you are using craft scissors or normal scissors rather than your fabric scissors, because cutting out the plastic will blunt your fabric scissors and you definitely don't want that. So I've cut out 4 of these plastic bits, but if you listen, they're a bit too smooth and not quite rustly enough. So I have also cut out some of the sewing tracing paper, and if you listen, it's a lot more crinkly. So what I'm going to do is use 2 layers of the plastic with a bit of that in between. This will then sandwich in between these ears and you'll get a really nice crunchy sound. And because it's slippy, it means once it's between the material it'll slide about, and it just gives that sensory aspect to the little plushie, and is great for little ones because, you know, they like noises and things like that, so different textures. So that's going to go in the ears. The first thing to sew for the elephant plushie is the ears. So what I'm doing here is taking apart the material and matching up the matching pairs. So you want to place these together, right sides together, so the colourful print sides together, and then see where the marking on the pattern piece is for the gap that's to be left, because we need to turn these right side out once they are sewn. So make sure you leave a gap, and then head to the sewing machine to sew all the way around that edge, making sure it's like a centimetre seam allowance, back stitching the start and end of the opening so that it gives it some strength when we are turning this inside out. And when you get to a part where you need to pivot, you want to drop the needle down into the fabric, lift the presser foot, and then move the fabric, placing the presser foot back down, and then carry on sewing in the direction that you need to. Repeating this all the way around the ear until you get to the gap of the other side and back stitching again. And then once it's sewn, we want to turn the ear right side out. So through that gap left, we want to push out the material and bring it right side out. And I actually use my seam ripper with the lid on to help push this through, because sometimes it's just a little bit tricky and that opening is quite small. So push out that material until the ears are right side out. And once all the ears are right side out, make sure all the corners are pushed fully out, and then get your iron and give it a quick press to make sure everything is lying flat and it's all nice and neat. Then remember the 2 plastic sheets and the sewing paper. Just want to fold these up and place them through that gap. I did have to trim these down to fit in with the ears because obviously I didn't take into account the seam allowance, but push these in, and then once they are fully in, the ears are nice and crinkly and ready to be attached to the rest of the elephant. So you want to take the 2 body pieces of the elephant and place these down where it is marked on the pattern piece, right sides together. Now you want to make sure your ears are facing the right way, so double check this with the pattern piece, and then pin these into place. To make it easier to attach the ears and the head and bodice together, we want to turn the stitch to the largest stitch possible on the machine and base stitch the ears in place on the bodice piece. Then take the 2 head pieces and place these down right sides up to the corresponding bodice piece so that the trunks are sort of facing towards the back of the bodice like this. Then pin these in place, ready to sew together. So head to the sewing machine and backstitch the start and end of the seam, and the head and bodice pieces should be connected together with the ears flapping between this seam. Then all you need to do is grab the iron and press them seams flat, and it helps also set in them stitches. And you want to make sure the seam is folding towards the head piece rather than the bodice piece, and press on the right side as well. Then it is time to connect the whole of the elephant together. So place the two pieces together right side to right side and line up all of the raw edges around the trunk, the legs and body pieces. When lining up the head seam, you want to make sure the two head pieces are matching, as well as making sure that the ears are pointing towards the bodice when sewing this around. Then you want to pin it all into place, and as you can see, we need to leave a gap at the back of the elephant so we can turn it right side out. For this point, I have placed 2 pins so I know which is the bit that I am going to be leaving. Back stitching at the start and then sewing all the way around the outline of the elephant, about 1 centimetre seam allowance, and taking it slow around the curved parts of the trunk and legs, and then back stitching again once we get to the other point of that gap that is being left. And now the elephant plushie is really taking shape, and what you want to do before turning it right side out is just clip some notches, and these are just simple snips along the curved edges of that seam, making sure not to cut through the actual seam itself. This will just help the material fold out and sit right, because it is curved. It'll fold out properly once it is turned right side out. Once you have added all these in, we want to turn the little elephant right side out and give it a quick press, because it will be very creased from coming out of that little opening, and it'll help just set some of them stitching in place that we have just sewn. And as you can see with the pressing as well, it has just created some nice folds to keep the raw edges of that gap inside the elephant. And then the next thing to do is make it a really nice stuffed plushie. So using some toy stuffing and just pushing it through that gap that was left to really pad out that elephant. And I'm also just using my seam ripper to really push that stuffing into the trunk and some of the edges to really puff it out. And keep stuffing until you get to the firmness that you desire. Then you can see we have this opening that we now need to close up, and to add another sensory aspect to the elephant, I'm using a few different shades of ribbon in different textures just to give it a really nice sensory bit, and placing this into that opening and closing it up with a hand sewing needle. I've actually sewn all 4 pieces of the ribbon together, and I've used a blanket stitch or an invisible stitch, but as you can tell, my hand sewing still isn't that neat. And then the finishing touches for the elephant is just to add on some eyes. Now you could add buttons, but obviously buttons and children don't always mix, and you don't want it coming loose and them swallowing it. So I am actually doing a little bit of hand embroidery here, and I think this is a back stitch, although I don't know if I'm doing it quite correctly. I have done some embroidery before, and I can link that video up above. So I think this is a back stitch. So I've traced on the design of the eye with the eyelashes, and then using some black embroidery thread, 3 strands worth here to follow that shape. And then the elephant plushie is complete and ready to use or give away to that treasured little one. They have how to make a elephant plushie. Look how cute it is. It's just beautiful. I love it, and hopefully the little one is going to love it as well. What I like about this is the different sensory aspects on it. So it's nice and plushy, hence the name. So it's got a nice bit of stuffing in there, as well as the different textures of the silk ribbon for the tail, and then them crinkly ears. It is such a really good sentiment exploration for little ones, I think, anyway. So yes, it's just so cute. So let me know what you think of this lovely elephant plushie in them comments below, and whether you'll be having a go at making your own, because they are really easy to do. As well as give the video a big thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to keep up with all of my crafting and creative antics coming up onto the channel. Whilst you're there, hit that notification bell, because that will alert you each time my videos go live, as well as checking out my blog Aimsy's Antics, because there's always a ton more information over on the blog for you to check out. And with that said, I will see you in next week's video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week, and I will see you next time. Happy crafting! Bye!